Behold the mystery bucket. What is inside the mystery bucket I shall now reveal. Now, you will almost certainly not recognise this unless your school was fortunate enough to have had some. I first came across this stuff, which is called Polydron, in the Science Museum in London, on a rare visit that I went on with my parents down that end. And they have one of those sort of terrific Science Museum shops in there, or they used to have anyway, whereby you could obviously pick up these, educational toys that you perhaps wouldn't find anywhere else. And I have a very clear memory of picking up my first lot of Polydron there, and that Polydron was primarily this sort of shape, where it was just a sort of a solid triangle. I'm not even sure if they had anything other than triangles back then, because what it allowed me to do was make spaceships from Elite. And for me, Elite in those days was sort of 1984 kind of era. Elite was purely wireframe polygons. So observe. Get one of those. I think I needed about 8 total, if I remember rightly. And you could basically... couldn't make the ship that you flew. Well, I didn't make the ship that I flew. I can't remember if you can do that with Polydron or not, actually. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then need one more. Okay, so one Sidewinder coming up. Apologies for the colour coordination or lack thereof. So you see, it's rather clever because it hinges from the joints like that, so you can build up geometric shapes very, very easily. And with a little bit of planning, if you can figure out what net you need, they're actually quite good fun. So you just clip them in together like that, they just snap together. But once you actually interlock them, you find they've actually got a lot of strength. Now, I can't remember if this is actually a spot-on accurate Sidewind, but basically that's what one looks like. So 3 triangles on top, 3 triangles on bottom, and those would be the engines at the back there. So that is the sort of thing that I used to make ad infinitum when I was little, because it was the nearest you could get to having an elite spaceship. Now, of course, these ones that I picked up for my son, because obviously all dads get their kids the toys they had growing up because they want to play with them again. Anyway, these ones are slightly more modern versions of Polydron. And as you can see, it's a square, but it's also a see-through square. So, if you want to build something that has, for example, a window in it, then you can use that. But they also brought in these, and of course these are 90-degree triangles rather than being the equilateral triangles that the original solid triangles were. So it just gives you more build options, but they attach in exactly the same way as the original Polydron did. And all of this Polydron in this bucket is new Polydron. It's not my Polydron from sort of decades back. So all of this stuff is actually, you should be able to find this on Amazon, I would think. In fact, if I can do, I'll put a link in the description as well. But you can see that, you have the options available still to, you can, make pretty much anything you want out of it within reason. I don't think it comes with any sort of wheels or anything like that. But you can intermix the solid with the the frame stuff quite readily. That's no problem at all. So you can just given enough volume of it, you can build whatever the hell you want, really. Not a problem at all. You can also make squares out of the 90-degree triangles as well, you see. So you get a lot of sort of flexibility, and if you get stuck, you can always kind of improvise if need be. Because these ones, interestingly, in fact, I'm not sure I've ever actually noticed that before. It's funny, isn't it, when you're doing these things to try and demonstrate them. So that square doesn't actually fit in that gap because, of course, the hypotenuse, good technical term, of this triangle is longer than the normal width of the squares and the other triangles. So you'd have to finish this off with another 90-degree triangle set in order to actually allow them to all meet up again. So you would have to do this, I think, to form a shape that would hold together. But it is an interesting system because, as I say, when it is clipped together, it can actually hold its own pretty well in terms of sort of rigidity and so on. So you can create some pretty big stuff out of it if you wanted to. So I can see why it's used in schools because, of course, it is a very sort of interesting tool. Basically, what I'm going to end up with there is a cube. But you couldn't do that with the equilateral ones I had originally. But you could do all sorts of sort of interesting things, and you can see on the there's a few examples there on the side of the bucket to demonstrate what you can do. So you can do sort of star formations. You could do I think I did a Coriolis space station from Elite as well. You could do that fairly easily because, again, that was just, I think, 2 squares and then however many triangles. So that was kind of workable. Or it's workable from this set anyway. I'm not sure about the original set actually. But that is literally all there is to it. But it's just one of those things where I don't know that it ever particularly took off. It's obviously kept going as a sort of STEM toy, just like robotics did actually, from back in the same sort of era. Somebody has always sort of picked it up after it's perhaps gone out of its initial run and tried to keep it going. So I think it's a nice thing to be able to play with. And as I say, it's good solid plastic. That's not it's not at all bendy and brittle, even with the connection points. And it just means it can be taken apart and put back together again. And because it's quite big pieces, you can generate quite sort of big stuff from it quite readily and quite simply. And it'll be quite hard for it to get lost as well because none of the pieces are as small as Lego. So as I say, if I can find a link to it on Amazon, I'll put an associates link in the description for you to have a close look at it yourself. But just thought I'd show you that in case it was of any interest. So cheers for now.